Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror Podcast. I want to welcome you to this amazing podcast in which we talk about nothing but horror films from every decade of filmmaking ever, since horror films have been made since before 1900s. Since the dawn of filmmaking, horror films have been made. And we are bringing them to you one film at a time here at this podcast. Now, if you are familiar with us, we have been doing a lot of different films from many different subgenres as well as decades in order to get a very clear picture of all the different types of horror films out there that have been produced and made, whether they're big studio films or independent film productions. And we want to delve even deeper into a lot of films which are either labeled as good, such as Misery or The Shining, or those films that are not so good, like The Graveyard Shift or Maximum Overdrive. And as you have or may have picked up on, all of those movies were from Stephen King originally. And I'm doing it on purpose because we're going to be doing a lot of Stephen King adaptations because his work was so influential to the film genre itself in the 80s especially, but 90s and so on and so forth. Since a lot of films are being remade as we speak and are being made for the very first time. So what better way to delve deep into the filmography of works based on Stephen King than to delve into the infamous The Graveyard Shift. And to talk about The Graveyard Shift with me on this episode is Sarah Panazzo. I want to thank you for joining me again, Sarah, for this.
No, Kevin, thank you for making me watch this movie again.
See, everyone, it is a very infamous movie in which a lot of people have opinions of this, is that it's a bad movie. In fact, since I saw the movie at the theater when it was originally released, I've never met anyone who actually liked this film other than me. So it's going to be an interesting conversation that we have today in regards to this film. And I saw it when I was a kid, but Panazzo, on the other hand, was not a kid when this movie came out, so she would have seen it much later in life. So you tell everyone exactly when you saw this film, why you bothered to see this film.
So I am a lifelong Stephen King fan. I retired from Goosebumps straight into Stephen King at like the ripe age of like 8 or 9. And I believe this is actually one of the first collected storybooks that I read of his before I moved on to the bigger books. I don't remember when or why I watched this. It was probably because I was going through like the Dead Zone and everything else that like was good in the 70s and 80s that came out. And I just did like a deep dive, or I think I was watching them with my dad, and rewatching this, I always have anger issues when it comes to Stephen King projects because I read the books and then I see the actual end piece and I'm like, that's not it.
So I don't remember. I did read the original story because I believe this is part of Night Shift.
Yes.
So this was one of the very first Stephen King books I read. The first one I ever read was originally Carrie. My mother happened to put me onto Stephen King, so I read Carrie and I read the Night Shift collection. I remember nothing about any of the stories in Night Shift because I've never reread the book. And a lot of those stories have been made into films. So I don't come to this as, and when I say when I read it as a kid. So that was probably in the late 80s when I read the book. So the late 80s, mid 80s, somewhere around there, long before I saw the movie in 1990. But when I saw it, when it came out of the theaters, I was highly anticipating the movie. My mother and I used to go to see all the Stephen King movies as they were being released at the theaters. And I was like, oh man, it's a Stephen King movie, Graveyard Shift. It has Brad Dourif in it. And I was aware who Brad Dourif was because of the Child's Play movies. So I probably was a geek back then for films either. Watching this, I had a lot of anticipation to this film. Rats, I hate rats. So they actually terrify me. They don't terrify me in this movie. This movie to me was...
They look so cute.
I would rather be scared of the rats in like Ben than I would be in this movie. But I really loved this movie as a kid. I don't know why I loved this movie as a kid. I have seen the movie 1,000 times. Of all the junk Stephen King adapted movies, I probably have seen this one more than all the rest, and I have no idea why. Um, uh,
It's that hip, cool end credits scene where they do like the weird like sound effects from the movie just over and over again. That's what it is, Kevin.
well, the thing is, even when I first saw this movie, I didn't really like the giant bat creature. I didn't like that, but I still loved the movie.
Hmm.
And and even now when I rewatch the movie for the podcast, the giant bat creature really still doesn't hold up, in my opinions. Yet I still love. It's like watching a really bad movie, but loving it despite its badness.
No, 100%. Like it's got some great one-liners. Like it is so funny. Brad Dourif and everybody else who's in this movie are like, it's a hey, it's that guy, just over and over and over again. The like I said, the one-liners, the special effects with the bat are it's a fun little creature feature. Um, but yeah, the writing is not great. The based on the original story, it could have gotten so much better. Just with the multitude of types of rats, and that there was like the queen rat and not this giant bat that likes to suffocate and eat people. Um, but it's still fun. I mean, it's very campy. It's very just ridiculous.
This is ridiculous, especially with the actor who plays Warwick, who is the chief person responsible. He's got this deep accent, which is during because he's the only one in the movie who really has a deep accent in this. I guess it would be a main town.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to decide. I was watching it. I was like, what the hell is with this accent? And then I was like, oh, it's like in Jaws. It's that whole like Northeast coast type deal.
And he's the only one in the whole film that's so predominant
Oh
for
my
his
gosh.
character. But it makes me like his character even more because he kind of sets the tone for me for the entire film, because you have this outsider guy who's the drifter who comes into this small little town who that this mill is like the lifeblood of everyone who lives there. They're all
Hmm.
forced to work in this old ass decrepit mill that's infested with rats. And then you have Brad Dourif, who I just love in this movie. Uh, uh,
He's just chewing scenery the entire
he's
movie.
chewing scenery the entire movie. He gets the movie he's playing in. It's like, oh, it's one of those type of movies. Okay, this is not his Oscar, nominated. What was it? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is Bride of Chucky type of.
No, because even Bride of Chucky is better than this.
It is. Get me, but it's the fun he has in the movie, especially with his story that he tells the
Oh
main
my
character.
God. And he's just got the single tear coming down his cheek. My husband made me pause it, rewind it so we could watch it again. He was like, this is iconic. I need to see this because he had never seen it when we had started
Oh,
watching it. My husband has realized that he has known Stephen King movies all of his life, but he did not know they were Stephen King movies. Like, huge Running Man fan. And he's like, man, I hate Stephen King. That stuff is so scary. And I was like, oh, sweetheart. But yeah, so he started watching it and he was dying. He was rolling on the floor laughing at this. I mean, like I said, there's some really, really great lines, like Brad Dourif's line during his story about try raw American, hold the mayo, thank you.
but it's so good. He does it so well. Like you would believe Brad Dourif that the Warwick and Brad Dourif's character looks like they lived in this town
Yes.
forever. Like they know the movie they're doing, and they
It
like,
should have just been the two of them because everybody else, I was like, why are you even here? You're
yeah.
just here to be eaten. That's it.
I hate to say this, but the main character, the drifter, I can't remember his character to save my life.
John Hall, because it was John and Jane. I only remember because I was like John Doe, Jane Doe.
Oh Jesus! See, he's such a throw. I like the actor. I can't remember the actor's name. I like the actor because he's a character actor. He showed up in a lot
Yes.
of other stuff. But he's so dry in this film. And the only fun he has is when he has the
The
slingshot,
slingshot and the Diet Pepsi.
which is hilariously you like that's not something you're going to see in any other mill, any other film other than the film about a bunch of rats that infest a mill.
And I thought it was so funny that he goes from like actively hitting them with it to like keeping the crushed one in his desk as a threat.
Oh my god! And of course, that's all set up for the very end of the film.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Which the giant bat creature death scene is horrible. It was horrible when I saw it. It was like, oh my god, this is so horrible. But over the years, for me, this is a bad film that I just absolutely love. But the ideal of this type of place where you have a bunch of people being forced to work there
Yes.
because of the Warwick character doing the most nastiest job. They're literally cleaning out a decrepit mill to make space, and they come across an even deeper mill that's probably was the original mill before the current one, and it just keeps going down level.
It just keeps getting grosser and grosser too, because like all the water that they used to spray out everything, and then they find out like, oh, the old original mill where it was water powered, and it's all just blood and body parts, and
it gets dirtier and grimier as the film goes along, and then of course when you get to the actual creature's lair with all the bodies, like it's one of those things where the biggest problem I had with this film, other than death of the creature, which looked really stupid to me, is the fact that you're wondering how this giant fucking rat gets around anyways.
well, it's that, and then it left me thinking like, is the lead that like complicit in murders that people just disappear and die, that they've got that many bodies? I know it's attached to the cemetery, but like that's a lot of bodies.
A lot of bodies. And then, of course, are the rats bringing it to the back? None of that makes any sense in the movie.
No.
And you do realize that at some point that this whole under the mill, the original mill, does hook into the cemetery because you see caskets floating in one of the tunnels.
That was one of, I had to stop and I was like, they're using it to float down like the little river underneath. And it busts open and there's a skeleton and the chick screams and starts freaking out. And I'm like, lady, you're literally holding onto a casket. What did you think was in there? Like, if it was a rat, I would understand. But it's a fucking body and it's just a skeleton. It's not even decomposing anymore. It is just a skeleton and you are losing your mind.
Well, that's the thing is, at the very beginning of the film, you see, and they show this in the bar scene when the drifter, John, meets everyone for the or he doesn't meet everyone, but everyone sees him for the very first time, and he's looked down upon because he's the drifter, the person that doesn't belong there. And you get this sense that they all look down on him, but he's the one who actually doesn't get scared and goes running around crazy because of the creature when the shit hits the fan. I mean, literally, you see the Andrew Divoff character start whining like a little baby.
Oh yeah.
At one point, and of course the big guy who's the first one to bully John when he's there with the dead rat is the one who starts running up the stairs when he sees the hand. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the hilarious part of the movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure
100%.
it's not supposed to be. Yeah, I'm sure it's not supposed to be 100% hilarious, but it is hilarious.
It is like full on slapstick at points. Like I wrote down there's the whole scene where the guy Carmichael's like, there's a hole here. And I'm like, yeah, a giant rat-sized hole. Let's just stick our hand in there and see what happens, because it's never been bad before.
Wait, which one is Carmichael?
He was the younger black guy.
Okay, so yeah, the younger black guy who comes out of nowhere in the script. He just shows up as another worker, and he sticks his hand in the little bitty hole. And then, of course, the monster grabs onto it and then pulls him through the little bitty hole or pulls him through the wall. We never see, because it's just funny to think that he's getting pulled through a little hole.
He like comes and pulls his arm out and it's like the blood and stuff spraying everywhere, and then everybody runs away, and then he's conveniently pulled off screen by an unseen force, never to be heard from again. And I'm like, that's most of the deaths in this movie, is the never to be heard from again, because it's like the guy was like drowning in the water or whatever or something, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh no, it's got me, and then he's just gone, and it's like, oh okay, I guess we'll just move on.
That's the thing, if this had been a different type of monster movie, and I love monster movies, and
Hmm.
this monster, this giant bat rat creature, because when I read about this, everyone kept saying it was a giant rat, then there's a giant bat creature. Who the hell knows what it is? It's something in between, in my opinion.
It is actually a bat because who was it? Frank Welker is officially titled as the like Queen Rat voice or Queen Bat voice or something like that. I just thought it was also funny that it was Frank Welker because of course.
Walker, of course. Oh my god, and one of the things I always thought that was weird about this was the fact that it was this giant bat that controlled all these fucking rats instead of a bunch of bats. Uh,
Yeah. Which is why I wish they stick more to the book with that because it was like they had multiple kinds of rats. Like they had the ones who went out and got the food that were armored or whatever. Like they had evolved differently based on their like whole skill set as their rat community. And then there was just the giant featureless white rat queen that just laid there to give birth constantly. And I was like, that could have been like they hinted at it with this with the bat, but at the end that ended up being like the big kill all creature instead of it being an entire like ant community where they've got their queen and their workers and everything else, and it just keeps going because everybody just keeps getting killed and eaten in the book. And I was like, it could have been so grotesque and so well done, and I would love to see somebody do it like this or like more based on that. But the whole army side story stuff with this, with like Warwick, where he like puts on the war paint because he's
yeah,
going back to war, and then Dorf with his whole like, well, I was in Vietnam, but I wasn't one of those guys. And it's like, it could have been really, really good if it was done correctly. But there's a reason why this director and writer never did another project after this.
oh really? Oh,
Yes.
oh, see, I didn't know that. I know the movie did horrible at the box office. I may have been the only one that saw it with my mom, actually.
No, there were quite a few people who saw it. I mean, the budget was 10.5 million and domestically it did 11.6 million. So it still made money, just not a lot.
But it's still infamously considered a horrible movie by standards.
I mean, Stephen King named it as one of his least favorite out of all the ones that he did or that were done by people because he had no in on this at all.
Yeah, or you would have seen him in somewhere in the movie.
Yeah, correct. And I thought he would have been the rat catcher like phenomenally because that is 100% him every time he's in one of the movies.
Oh yeah, that he could have been the red catcher.
Yes.
His death scene would have been awesome.
Oh my God.
Which I actually do like. I think it's a frivolous death scene.
But it is so much fun.
It is so much fun. When I saw this movie at the theater, I loved watching Brad Dourif in so many other movies, Spontaneous Combustion, and a bunch of other movies that I had seen him in, and I was not expecting him to die so
That way,
soon in the movie.
especially, like it was like out of all the other deaths, everybody's getting eaten and stuff, and it's like the ground just like collapses in because like I don't know if the rat was burrowing underneath or what, and then it like slides and smushes his head, and then the whole thing just sinks, and it's like it's really overkill. I
It's
guess it
overkill.
matches his personality of overkill with drowning the rats, but like,
Oh my god! Well, the funny thing about that is he doesn't necessarily. He kind of uses the water to eject all the rats, and then you kind of wonder where his assistant is in anywhere else in the film other than that one scene where he's helping them eject all the rats and the
yeah.
river, which is a really bad idea.
Well, and they talk about that later because originally I was like, oh, they're drowning all the rats, and then they make the throwaway line later of like, oh, well, we're gonna nail this on you because you're illegally throwing them in the river, and now they're infecting all the other mills. And I was like, well, there you go.
Or with cutting costs by not getting rid of the rats permanently. But I will say one of the things I still loved about the film now is the production design for everything when you get to the lower depths of the mill
Hmm.
itself. When they get stuck down in the first room, which has the trap door that leads down.
Yeah, it's got like the cobwebs and everything, and
though when you see these other layers, you kind of get. I wish they delved more into all the background for all this other stuff. You just have to pick up this information later about the older mill that this has been, built on top of. But you don't get a sense of the grandeur of that until you go into the layer of the beast and you see how tall all of this actually was. I don't know where they hid all this shit.
Yeah, because like they have like a whole mine shaft at one point that Warwick like falls down, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, how deep does this go underground?
Yeah, you don't get a sense of any of that because the scene where, and I only noticed this now, the scene where Durov and his character's assistants has all the water hoses coming out of the mill, and the pump water through, and then everything the rats come back out. You don't get a sense that it's all that big.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, it looks like it's just like a two-story barn, if anything.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you see all this stuff levels and levels down because they're down because the John's character falls down and he has climbed his way all the way back up at the third act of the film. He's got to climb up this old shaft. So it's really cool production wise, the production design wise, all of that shit's cool.
Yeah, I mean the gore's good. The creature itself is pretty good. It's pretty gnarly. But yeah, it's just it's a great little popcorn creature feature.
I kind of get the I kind of, and I have not delved deeper into this. I kind of wonder if the late 80s and 90s just were not kind to monster films. I'd have to do more research on that because you kind of get the sense that this was buried or forgotten because it was a monster film and people didn't take those seriously. I know this was at the end of the huge slasher boom of the late 80s, and we're getting into the 90s, which were kind of like in my opinion, a time period where they just kind of threw everything out there.
See, I don't think it's that. I think it was more of like it was an indie feature because the guy who originally optioned for it, William J. Dunn, was a location scout on Creepshow 2 with Stephen King and on Pet Sematary and helped establish the main film office. So I think this was more of like an indie passion project because even like the director and writer ended up being people who had worked on like older Creepshow stuff or other Stephen King things as like smaller roles. And this was all of them coming together to make a fan film of some sort. And it just wasn't well done. I mean, they were obviously not really a director or a real writer. But I think it was just that kind of like, that was the 90s indie film of, hey, we've got some people who want to make this movie and we don't really know how to do that because we do all the other parts of filmmaking, but
well, I don't know. I really do think I need to do some more research on monster films at that time of period because I don't recall right now. I could be wrong about this. I don't recall right now how many monster films were being made at this time period and how many were successful. I don't remember a time period where monster films were ever a subgenre that actually played well with audiences for a long period of time. In my opinion, I think a lot of monster movies kind of one gets popped out here, one gets popped out there. I mean, we got everything from the movie Bats with Lou Diamond Phillips and a whole bunch of people that no one remembers. We had stuff like this. And I think the only thing that anyone ever remembers are shark movies and the occasional alligator movie.
Yeah, because I was just going to say The Relic, because that was around this time. I mean, you had Monster Squad, which was like 3 years before this.
Which didn't do well, so.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like, they didn't do well, but they're still like the cult movies, I guess.
You gotta keep it. Well, yeah, and this is not a cult movie.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
This is a highly forgotten movie, infamous for most people thinking it's bad, and I'm the only one who thinks it's a fun movie. And like I said, I've seen this movie way more times than probably most people have ever bothered to watch any movie. I do enjoy a good bad movie, and I could always throw this movie in because I like monster movies. I like monster movies. I've seen Relic a lot. I think they called it The Relic, but the book is called Relic.
Yes.
Yeah, not the recent Relic movie, but the one.
No, completely different.
The one with Tom Sizemore and Penelope Ann Miller. That Relic, the Relic movie. And Kathoga, that's the monster, Kathoga. See, I remember some of this stuff. I saw these movies at the theater. I used to love watching these type of movies. Monster movies were my jam. But I don't ever remember them being like highly successful. Shark movies have always been this thing where you can have a really bad shark movie and people will still go see it. But monster movies seem to be this sub genre that just either hits or it really misses. There is no in between. And that's one of the things I see about all the monster movies that came from Stephen King's work. People don't remember those nearly as much as they remember the other type of works of his. So you would have.
I can see what you mean with that, because you go back to like Universal Monsters, and those were like groundbreaking, ahead of their time, all that stuff, and then you don't really get back into that. I mean, I guess and then like Godzilla and like Creature from the Black Lagoon and everything else like that, where they were legitimately monsters. Like,
I just don't think it's a sub genre. I'm saying sub because you have monster movies like human monsters like Dracula and and then you have the sub genre, which is like Kathoga and this bat creature and stuff like that, and that aren't like an alligator or a shark, or an anaconda, or what do you call it?
An anaconda.
Anacondas was successful. I was trying to think of one of those hybrid anaconda movies.
Sharknado. I mean, come on, there's so many.
See, those are I think those type of movies always do well, but even rat movies, you can think of Willard, the remake.
Yeah.
How many rat movies do you think actually have been made and were successful? There's not a whole lot of them. I mean, you remember Willard, the original, Ben, because Michael Jackson had a song in that one, and then this one. All right, the remake of Willard, and this one mostly is rats. I don't know if that's a turnoff or these type of. I mean, it'd be interesting to figure to go through the history of monster films and figure all this out. I know that this one is not a popular Stephen King film, not as much as say Cujo, which is a dog,
right?
Or
I think it was more of because a lot of his horror is like human monsters, and it was only later on that we started getting some of the better non-human monsters. Like you've got like the Outsider TV show and stuff like that, because this was a year before it, or it was the same year as Tim Curry's It was released.
You also had... Oh, go ahead.
And then Pet Sematary was the year before, where you've got that mixture of demonic dead animal and then undead person. Yeah.
But you also had at this time, I think you have The Mangler, you had Graveyard Shift, you had, I'm trying to think of the other Stephen King monster movies that were all coming out at this time that have been highly forgotten, because it seemed like every year they would come out with a new one.
Yeah, I mean, you have
The Lawnmower Man, the other infamous movie that I love, but no one seems to like other than me, which Stephen King took his name off that one.
Well, and I mean, then you got like Christine, where it's a car. The monster is a car, and I mean, I love the little the reference of the black version of the car in this one as just a tiny little throwaway. But yeah, I mean, his monsters are like, when you think of Pennywise, like his monsters are so big and so just otherworldly. It was like putting Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft at the time. Like, I don't know if movie makers were prepared to try and actually create those monsters, that they could do them even successfully. Whereas nowadays, like, you can do whatever and you can come up with it on CGI and stuff and it can be successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then trying to do it like practically or with really, really bad special effects, I don't think it would have landed, obviously.
Well, yeah, the two other ones you can think about are the Tommy Knockers and the Langoliers. I mean, I hate to say this, but neither one of those are highly regarded.
No, I mean everything that was highly regarded back in like the 70s, 80s when they came out were like the human people are the villains,
Yeah.
where you get like Carrie and Misery, and then you get all of his stuff where it's not necessarily horror as we're used to, but you get like The Green Mile and
Mhm.
Shawshank Redemption and uh Stand By Me, where they're these horrific tales that are not necessarily monsters. Um, but he always had these stories with monsters, which were so great, and nobody could make them successfully, I guess, because we're still like finding new ones that they're remaking or making for the first time because it's such a wide thing. Like, a man.
Well, yeah, I just add another one in there. You also have Maximum Overdrive, which is another monster movie that no one seems
Yeah,
to care two cents for, and neither does Stephen King.
he was on so much cocaine making that movie.
Uh, I honestly do believe that Graveyard Shift, as B level Z grade movie as it is, the production values still hold up pretty damn well. So it doesn't feel like it's a low budget independent production like say Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yeah.
I may have never been satisfied with the giant bat creature, but I don't think they could have ever really done a successful bat creature.
It also didn't look bad as like a creature in general.
Because they didn't show the whole thing.
Exactly. It's what makes it the best.
Yeah, except for the ending when they tried to say that its tail gets captured in the thing, and the one press just chops it all up, and I was like,
Hmm. They just cut back and forth to like more of it being missing, and then all of a sudden it's just like the little part of its skull.
yeah, which I thought was hokey. I thought it was hokey back in 1990, and I still think it's hokey now. But that still won't stop me from enjoying the movie. Like I said, I will admit this. I probably watch this film once every 3 years. I don't never watch any of Stephen King's films that often, except for probably Misery. I love throwing Misery in there. I'm weird. Misery, I think, is a flawless Stephen King adaptation. I think it's fucking brilliant. Kathy Bates chills me.
She's just genius.
She's
I
genius.
love her. And the little bit that they do in Castle Rock, the TV show with
I still need to watch that. Ah,
the woman who Lizzie Kaplan who plays her on that does such a great job of copying that role. It's unbelievable.
and another thing is that was my very first Stephen King book. I read that one. I kept thinking it was Carrie, but it wasn't Carrie. It was Misery, then Carrie, then Night Shift. Because I didn't get through all of Misery. I kept skipping all the stuff that was the actual book that the character Sheldon was writing. I skipped all that. I remember that. That's why I went through it so fast. I read the book and I skipped all the parts with the actual book that he's writing. I was like, oh shit, let me skip that part. That's not important.
I mean, as cheesy and as not great as this movie is, I will end up rewatching it again. It's like when we watched Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Like it is perfectly cheesy and campy for the time. It has some great one-liners. Like I'm gonna be doing the whole like Crypt Creeper, the graveyard shift over and over for the rest of my life. And then just the whole like raw American, hold the mayo. It's gonna be in my new like list of lines to go to when I'm talking about whatever nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I do believe that if the movie did not have Brad Dourif in it, I
It,
may not have enjoyed it nearly as much as I do.
yes.
Um, I think certain actors bring a presence that elevates movies,
Hmm.
and they can be really bad movies, but they elevate them with their presence. I think he does that to this film. I do believe that if he had not been in this film, I think this would be one of those Stephen King films I watched once and never watched again.
Yes. Because it's like we were saying earlier with him and Warwick, I would have watched just the two of them in this movie all day, and it probably would have been better than showing some of these other characters who we, one, really didn't care about, and two, ultimately were just chow.
Yeah, I like when you don't care about the main character because he's just some random drifter who you never get a sense of who he actually is, other than
Yeah.
a slingshot. and a Pepsi
I
can.
kept calling him Discount Kevin Costner. I mean, so many people in this movie looked like so many other famous people, and I was like, I know these are all like character actors that I've seen in other things, but like you don't even get a lot of these people's names until like halfway through the movie.
Yeah, it's one of those movies, uh, and which turns off a lot of people. I mean, if I'm going to watch a monster movie where people get really killed one by one, I might put in The Ruins, which we haven't discussed yet. I love that movie. I thought that was a
Oh
creative.
no, I thought we totally did that one, didn't we?
No, we were
Or we were
supposed to.
scheduled to. Oh yeah, I love that movie. It's so good.
That's a great monster movie, or like Deep Rising. These are those movies I can watch over and over again.
Well, and see, like The Ruins, I wouldn't even consider that a monster movie. Like I wouldn't.
Why don't the plants are just as deadly?
I know, but I don't consider them a monster. That's Mother Earth taking back.
Maybe because I love Day of the Triffids. I consider those
Okay,
types of
yeah.
things monsters. Like I've seen the three different versions of Day of the Triffids, and I love monster movies.
Yeah. Now, if we're gonna go with like what's it called? Little Shop of
Little
Horrors,
Shop of
and you
Horrors,
go with
yeah.
like Aubrey 2 or Audrey 2, like then sure, that's a monster, but yeah, a hive mind plant is just a plant, no matter how carnivorous it is.
Oh Jesus. Oh, I'm so glad we can talk candidly about these monster movies like this, hoping that the people who are listening will either go out there and check this movie out or not check it out. I don't know if we've convinced anyone to still go check this movie out at
I
all.
don't know. It's fun. It's definitely, like I said, if you're gonna do like a campy fun night, like children shouldn't play with dead things, like you're looking for some like straight one-liners that you will be cracking up about the rest of your life, this is definitely one of those movies. The
Uh,
rest of it is like kind of meh, but those jumps in between are very short. There are one-liners like every other minute in this movie.
yeah, it's a good a party drinking friends at the house type of movie that you don't have to pay attention to the entire time.
Yes,
But yeah, yeah.
100%.
Oh my God. So, is there anything else you'd like to tell everyone about the movie Stephen King's Graveyard Shift?
I mean, if we're gonna go to hell, we're going to hell together.
That's right. Oh my God, Warwick. Oh God.
I'm sorry, I had to.
No, that's
It
good. That's good. He's got some of the best lines. All right, so it is that time where we're going to go rate the movie from 1 to 5 stars. 1 being very bad, 5 being absolutely excellent and flawless, which I know this movie will not be for either one of us. What do you give the film?
So I have to give it two completely different scores. Because as a horror film, it has a 1. It is not great on the horror, but as a comedy, it's sitting up there with like a 3 or a 4. Because it is, I think I laughed more of this movie than anything else, just because of how ridiculous it is, the one-liners, everything. It is so much camp, and it is so much fun.
So I'm gonna go. See, I'm gonna do mine too as well, but not in the same way you're doing yours. Mine is going to be in terms of a filmmaker and film qualities and of Stephen King film. I would give this a 2 star. It's not one of the best, and it's not certainly not the worst.
No.
Um, it's passable if you only watch it once. It is not a film required to ever watch, even if you're a horror junkie. You'll probably watch it and think, "Oh my God, why did I watch this crap?" But as a guilty pleasure, and this has always been a guilty pleasure movie for me, because like I said, even when I originally saw the movie, I didn't care for the giant rat monster at the end because it looked hokey to me. I will give this movie a 4 stars. I've watched this movie more times than I probably should have, and I've mentioned that time and time again. Love Brad Dourif, love the actor who played Warwick. They simply sell this movie. If neither one of those actors had been in this movie, I probably would have seen it once and never watched it again. There are some movies like that that are Stephen King based, like Dreamcatcher. I still think
Hmm.
it's a horrible fucking movie, and that has some great actors in it. Great
Yeah.
actors. I think it's horrible, horrible. I don't ever want to watch it again, but I know we'll probably do it on our podcast one day. This movie is miles better than that movie and more enjoyable. If you were listening to this and you like to just sit back, drink a beer with some friends, and chill on some people getting killed and a lot of one-liners, this is a movie to watch. Not some shit monster coming out of people's butts.
I was going to say, you want to talk about monster movies, Dreamcatcher is pretty far up there with a demonic toilet.
We keep saying that Stephen King was on cocaine when he did Maximum Overdrive. I think he was on a hell of a lot more shit when he wrote Dreamcatcher. And I read the book and saw the movie, and I still think both of them are horrible. Mr. King, if you're listening to this, please I think highly of your work, and I still read most of everything you produce, and I've seen almost every film that ever has been made of your work. But Dreamcatcher is by far the worst piece of atrocity I've ever seen and read. But that's what I say about The Graveyard Shift. It's a guilty pleasure movie for me. If you're looking for quality, it ain't there for you or for me. But take it as you will, because I hope that more people will seek this movie out. I know this is not a cult movie. This is not a movie that's on most anyone's radar. It is a movie that has been forgotten through time and considered an infamously bad movie. But I hope that some of you who have never seen it before do take a chance on it. Take a chance, especially if you're a monster movie fan. Take a chance on it. If you're not a monster movie fan, it's going to be hard to recommend it to you. But there you go. I want to thank you, Panazzo, for joining me on this episode of Conversations in Horror. I look forward to our next conversation about whatever film it is. And for everyone out there listening, I want you to take a look at some of the stuff we've done in the past. I'm sure that there are movies that we have touched on, but if you think that we have not touched on a movie that you do want us to, please make sure to leave a comment or contact me directly. We will put it on our list to try and get to before the end of the year, because that's what we want to do here. We want to test out and try out all the films that you guys want people to talk about but never do. That is what we do here at Conversations in Horror. And from me and everyone else here at Something Wicked Entertainment, everyone out there, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.